Critics say that you do unnecessary eye surgery of cataract patients for the money.
Primetime. Now from Washington, Sam Donaldson.
Good evening and welcome. We begin tonight with the story of a so-called big cutter, Dr. James Desnick, an Illinois eye doctor who specializes in high-volume cataract surgery for the elderly. Nothing wrong with that in principle. Cataract operations are almost always safe, and high volume does not necessarily preclude good care. But in our undercover investigation of the big cutter you'll meet tonight, we turned up evidence that he may also be a big charger, doing unnecessary cataract surgery for the money. Whose money? Why, yours, of course, the taxpayers, who put the bill for Medicare. Medicare paid out $3.3 billion for cataract operations in 1992. And as you will see, not all cataract operations are really necessary. One every 10 minutes, 50 a day, 11,000 cataract surgeries a year at the Desnick Eye Center.
You did beautifully. Your surgery went perfect.
I was blessed. The doctors were pleased. Of course, I'm pleased.
This clinic is one of more than a dozen high-volume, high-profit megacenters around the country set up to do cataract surgery.
I put my name on what I believe to be the finest cataract care center in the Midwest.
Dr. James Desnick, a 42-year-old ophthalmologist, is the busiest and one of the most controversial of the so-called big cutters. He oversees an expanding empire with 25 offices in 4 Midwestern states and at 26th, the Miami Vision Surgical Center in Florida. This modern building in northwest Chicago is the nerve center for the Desnick Empire. This is where the Midwest surgery is performed. 2 years ago, Dr. Desnick stopped doing operations himself, but his team of surgeons brings in an estimated $120,000 a day from cataract operations every day they operate. Most of it from Medicare and the U.S. taxpayer. According to his critics, that's what drives him, the money.
You go in there, if you got 3 eyes, he'll get 3 eyes. He gonna operate on you. It's just like a factory.
That's a blur right here. My eye is just nothing but a blur.
It's not about your welfare. It's all about money.
A cataract is a natural clouding of the eye's lens that occurs in all of us as we grow elderly. And the clouded lens is removed in the surgery. An artificial lens made of plastic is then installed. It's an operation that takes only minutes and is usually quite safe. But having a cataract doesn't automatically mean surgery is necessary. Not all cataracts should be removed.
That's absolutely true.
Dr. Michael Lemp was formerly head of ophthalmology for 9 years at Georgetown University in Washington, D.C.
Visual disability. That's the thing that triggers the decision to take out a cataract.
If I go to an eye doctor who says, Mr. Donaldson, you have cataracts, therefore they should come out, without asking me what my visual needs are, I'm not going to the doctor that I should.
I would agree with that.
To see for ourselves what happens at Dr. Desnick's clinic, we recruited 7 test patients to go undercover. 6 went to this packed office in Kenosha, Wisconsin. A 7th to this office in Munster, Indiana, where more than 50 van loads of patients arrived in the 3 hours we were there. All our undercover test patients were given a complete battery of exams.
How about the line above that?
The 2 under 65 were told no surgery was necessary and sent home.
Come out with me.
But for 4 of our 5 test patients over 65, and thus eligible for Medicare payments, the story was different.
You have some cataracts.
There's a cataract on the left eye more than the right eye.
Would you suggest her having the surgery, or?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean you'd be at a big advantage.
Our 5th test patient was told to come back in a few months.
4 months.
But Desnick Center doctors weren't the only ones to examine our patients. Primetime paid for each test patient over 65 to be examined by 2 independent eye surgeons, their own doctor and Dr. Howard Tesler, a professor of ophthalmology at the University of Illinois. Now, federal guidelines say cataract surgery is appropriate when vision is blurred and an eye tests 20/50 or worse even when corrected by glasses. According to the independent experts, all our test patients had corrected vision well within the federal guidelines. That was certainly true of 79-year-old Tony Vallejo.
Your eyes are really healthy, and with your old glasses you see about 20/30,
And if you made a small change in the prescription, you'd see 20/25.
But that wasn't what Vallejo heard at the Desnick Eye Center.
I think your vision is beginning to deteriorate.
How much will that cost?
Won't cost you anything because Medicare will pay for it.
Dr. George Simon didn't ask Vallejo if he had any vision problems. Vallejo hadn't complained of any. Vallejo was simply told he did and was encouraged to have surgery on both eyes.
Would you recommend that he have the procedure?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Doctor, are you certain that this patient doesn't need surgery now for cataracts?
Yeah, I think it would be near malpractice to do surgery on him.
But it can be very lucrative to do cataract surgery on elderly patients. Medicare pays $2,400 for each operation. That's $2,400 an eye. Dr. Desnick's clinic generates millions of dollars in income each year. How lucrative can it be for a surgeon there? Dr. Dan Ritaka was offered a job last year by Dr. Desnick. He observed there for a few weeks and was told he would be expected to perform a lot of cataract operations.
Anywhere from 35, and if he could push me to 40, 50.
A
the
day?
limit. Yeah, the limit.
And if you had joined him, you could have made as much as $500,000 a year. Why didn't you?
I wasn't able to screen who I was going to operate on.
Dr. Ritaka talked with the clinic's chief surgeon, a man who says he eventually got so fed up he left and complained to the FBI and State Medical Board.
I'd watch this Dr. Levy examine the patients and then start putting up a fight with the nurses that were pushing them in the rooms. And he would reject the patient, and I said, Dr. Levy, you know, you're rejecting the patient. That's good. That's ethical. I could do the same thing. And he says, no, because as soon as I reject them, they're going in the next room to get surgery.
You felt that if you had worked there, you would be doing something that was unethical.
I felt that I'd have a hard time getting to sleep at night.
We're going to make a step incision.
Dr. Desnick opened his clinic for us to watch surgery. The Desnick Eye Clinic is an impressive state-of-the-art facility, and the way it is kept filled with patients is also impressive and controversial. Desnick makes cold telephone calls to recruit new patients, runs a daily barrage of TV and newspaper ads.
No stitch, no patch, no shot.
But critics complain that his telemarketing and some of his advertising is misleading or unethical, complaints he dismisses as unfounded. Dr. Desnick told us he focuses his recruiting in poor areas in order to help people who don't have easy access to eye care. Along with cataract screening, he hands out free chicken lunches and gifts. But some former employees say he concentrates on poor patients because they often don't have easy access to second opinions.
The black community and the Hispanic community were specifically targeted.
This former Desnick marketing executive asked us to disguise her identity.
People who had Alzheimer's, people who did not know what planet they were on, people whose quality of life wouldn't change one iota by having cataract surgery done.
And Dr. Desnick took full advantage of their vulnerability.
Absolutely. Very often those people got surgeries the same day they had just come in for an initial exam.
We assembled a group of former patients who feel that the Desnick Eye Center's high-volume approach resulted in poor care. This is John Portens. He went in complaining he couldn't see well, not knowing he was suffering from a deadly melanoma cancer.
When the Desnick people examined you, did they find the melanoma?
No, they didn't find nothing.
The cancer, easily visible, was finally spotted on a chance visit to Portens' family doctor.
I guess you feel you may have escaped something.
I think I escaped pain. Because if they wouldn't have got that cancer out of there, it's been so long, Charlie.
And there's Pauline Jackson, a victim, she says, of unnecessary surgery. Her eye ruptured during the first of 2 cataract removals recommended by Dr. Desnick.
Eyeball stayed red, and it kept running, pus and stuff like that. So I had to go to another doctor.
A review of Mrs. Jackson's medical records shows she may not have needed surgery. According to a handwriting analyst, Dr. Desnick changed her chart from an acceptable 2025 to an unacceptable 2050. In another case, he changed a record from 2030 to 2080. Dr. Desnick says he changed the records only to correct mistakes by his technicians. Still, when he got sued, he settled the 2 cases out of court for a total of $265,000 without admitting liability. According to some former employees, he had an unwritten policy that everyone use the same color pens, blue, so making changes would be easier to do. We talked with one former employee who fears reprisals if she's identified.
He one time picked up a pen that was a black pen,
and started writing the record and realized it and threw the pen across the room and said, I don't allow black pens here. I only want blue pens. And of course, we all realized it was because he was trying to make a change on a record at that time.
And you saw him make these changes?
Oh, yes. He did. He used to do it in front of employees all the time.
Dr. Desnick says criticism of him has been drummed up by disgruntled former employees and by jealous colleagues afraid of the competition from his expanding business. He says his clinic has treated tens of thousands of patients with only a small percentage of complaints. He arranged for us to interview two satisfied patients, Leonard and Joan Baer.
The eye care, I don't think it would be any better than it is.
Everything is perfect. It's real good.
But consider what happened to test patient John Buck, who is 74. Dr. Mark Glazer, the center's medical director, recommended cataract surgery on both eyes.
If I switch seats with you, I'd have it done.
On his right eye, which our experts say has corrected vision well within the guidelines, and also on his left eye. The left eye? Buck's left eye has inoperable optic nerve damage. A cataract operation would be like replacing the lens on a hopelessly damaged camera, according to Dr. Howard Tesler.
He did have a small cataract in his left eye.
Correct.
But the optic nerve has been damaged.
Correct.
So cataract surgery would accomplish what?
Next to nothing.
So how was surgery justified for John Buck?
You know, you're getting glare. I would say that we could do significantly better.
Dr. Desnick's chief surgeon wrote us a letter insisting that surgery was indicated for Buck and in every one of our test cases because they each have significant objective glare disability. Now, glare can occur in some cataract sufferers. Normal nighttime lights can start to look like this. And the federal guidelines do say that if a patient complains about glare, surgery can be recommended. But none of our test patients, when they were even asked, complained about glare.
Do you ever notice any glare or blurriness when you're driving or difficulty with the signs?
No, not much because my glasses are tinted.
But the guidelines notwithstanding, the Desnick Center uses a very interesting machine called an autorefractor to determine whether there are glare problems.
I'm going to flash the bright light again. Can you see what's in there now?
The test looks convincing. We thought we'd try it.
DHV 928. Okay, Sam, you've got perfect vision. That's 20/20.
This is the machine that measures glare. Its accuracy depends on its adjustment. Paddy Kalish is an optometrist who says when he worked at the Desnick Clinic from 1987 to 1990, the machine was regularly rigged. He says he watched a technician tamper with the machine. This way.
I'm putting the tape on the bulb. The tape covers the bulb. And then I'm going to use a marker to change the contrast on the bulb.
Kalish then inserted the tampered bulb back in the machine, now ready for a customer.
SVG 365. It's very difficult.
This is what it now looked like on the machine screen.
Based on the test, you have a cataract on your left eye.
But because you tampered with the bulb?
That is correct.
Now, is that what happened at Dr. Desnick's clinics?
This happened routinely for all the older patients that came in for the eye exams.
Dr. Desnick claims Kalish is biased, and indeed the two have been locked in court actions against each other for over 2 years. Kalish filed a $500 million whistleblower suit against Desnick, claiming Medicare fraud. The courts threw it out. Desnick countersued, and because Kalish was a day late in filing a response, a court judgment has been entered against him pending further proceedings on Desnick's charge that Kalish defamed him. But Kalish is not the only one to tell us the machine may have been rigged. Primetime talked to 4 other former Desnick employees who say almost everyone failed the glare test.
Tony, I just need you to sign there.
Now, all patients recommended for surgery do sign a waiver, which, like the video they are shown at the Desnick Center, makes the point that cataract surgery is elective.
The changes in your lifestyle are the important criteria.
But what 4 of our 5 elderly test patients heard from the center's doctor was a recommendation for surgery with no discussion of alternatives or risk. All told, 7 cataract operations were recommended, $16,800 in Medicare money.
We've gone through the 5 patients that we brought you. You looked at all of them, and you tell us you don't recommend cataract surgery for any one of them.
No.
Well, doctor, could this just be an honest difference of opinion between professionals?
Not in these particular 5 cases, I doubt it.
We informed Dr. Desnick of our undercover results and provided him with the medical releases for our test patients. We repeatedly requested an on-camera interview, but he refused because he said we had conducted a witch hunt using deceptive and unethical tactics and had lied to him. He said he might consider sitting down for an unrecorded background interview, from which he could not be quoted. Dr. Desnick sent a letter calling our test patients shills who lied about their symptoms. He claimed they all met the federal and state criteria for elective surgery. But we still wanted to talk to him about it directly. Dr. Desnick, I'm Sam Donaldson of ABC, Primetime. May I speak to you a moment about your clinic? We tried to get him on the record one day at Chicago's O'Hare Airport. Your critics say that you do unnecessary eye surgery of cataract patients for the money. Is that correct?
I'm not here to respond to that.
Is it true, doctor, that you change medical records to show less vision than your patients actually have? We've been told, doctor, that you've changed the glare machine, so we have a different reading. Is that correct? Doctor, why won't you respond to the questions? As the complaints against Dr. Desnick mounted, the American Academy of Ophthalmology launched a disciplinary investigation. Dr. Desnick resigned his membership, leaving the Academy no choice but to close the inquiry. Medicare has cited Dr. Desnick for numerous infractions. In one instance, he paid $100,000 as a settlement, but he's still allowed to participate in the program.
Both eyes with more in the right eye.
We showed our undercover video to Congressman Pete Stark, who oversees the Medicare program in the House.
What you have seen here or shown me is a guy who's hustling. Unfortunately, we stay out of the doctor's decision.
But isn't this the taxpayer's decision? It's their money.
It's their money, and you're right. Those people ought to be put out of business. But what I'm further telling you is that they're probably right inside the law. That close.
Dr. Desnick is now expanding rapidly. He just bought this Chicago hospital to cater to Medicare and Medicaid patients. But many of his past patients who feel they've been injured are still struggling with their anger.
If he couldn't do me no good, why do me harm?
I'm going to be 73 years old, and I'm not going to back off. Ain't but one thing I'm sorry of.
What?
That they can't take his license away from him.
As a matter of fact, the state of Illinois Medical Board has begun a proceeding which could result in Dr. Desnick's losing his license. The board has charged him with 18 violations, among them deceptive or misleading advertising, gross or repeated malpractice, and taking unfair advantage of patients' vulnerability. Dr. Desnick is fighting the charges, which he says are without merit. Finally, we want to make the point that what we discovered at Dr. Desnick's clinic does not mean elderly patients should shun cataract surgery or ignore the recommendations of their ophthalmologist. In the proper hands, this surgery is a safe operation which can do much to improve vision.